So we're about to start a new series of all age slots on Christian heroes. And Christian heroes can be really encouraging, but they can also be a bit depressing because, the problem with them is we can never be like them. So how do we need to think about the Christian heroes we're going to learn about in the next few weeks? I mean, there are some wonderful heroes, aren't there? Think about in the Bible. Here's Daniel. Daniel's in the lion's den. I could never be a Daniel. I mean, he's amazing, but I could never do that. Here's Joshua and the Battle of Jericho. And Rahab was so brave, wasn't she? I could never be Rahab. And then you hear about all these amazing people. Here's a surfer who lost her arm. A story of faith, family and fighting to get back on board by Bethany Hamilton. I can't even surf. There's no way I could surf if I lost my arm. Corrie ten Boom. I couldn't do that. Mary Slessor. Nope, couldn't do that. Brother Andrew, smuggling Bibles behind the Iron Curtain. Couldn't do that. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, standing up to Nazi Germany. Nope, couldn't do that. Joni Eareckson Tada, being cheerful and loving Jesus, even though she's lived in a wheelchair since she was a teenager. Mary Jones walks hundreds of miles to get well, not hundreds, but walks a long, long way to get a Bible. Many evangelical Christians who go to churches just like ours barely read the Bible through the week. She walked miles and miles and saved up for years to get one. Elizabeth Elliot, she forgives the people who murdered her husband, who was a missionary. So my question is, isn't this just going to be a really depressing series of Christian heroes who are brilliant, but we could never be like them? In our household, we love hedgehogs. I absolutely love hedgehogs. And here are 6 hedgehogs, okay? And if you look at them, this is a teeny tiny one. It's very small. And this is a great big silly hedgehog that's actually a doorstop and it's really quite heavy, like that. And this one is squashable. This is the original one. This is the oldest of all the hedgehogs. And the point of this is that none of these are actually hedgehogs. They're soft toys and we love them. But the point of a soft toy hedgehog is to point us to a real hedgehog. The point is, this one doesn't have to look at this one and say, oh, he's bigger than me, or that one to say, oh, they're slimmer than me. That's not the point. None of these are real hedgehogs. They're cute, they're cuddly, but they're not real. And they point us to real hedgehogs. And that's how you and I should think about Christian heroes. None of those heroes are Jesus, but they point us to Jesus. Daniel's not Jesus, he points us to Jesus. Rahab's not Jesus, she points us to Jesus. King David's not Jesus, he points us to Jesus. These point us to how brilliant real hedgehogs are. They're very, very cool. And we are just like those Christian heroes. It's not our job to be Jesus. We point people to Jesus. Now, Paul says it very clearly in 1 Corinthians. He says, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. So when you read about amazing things Paul does, you're meant to think how brilliant Jesus is. And everything of Jesus you see in Paul, you follow. And when you hear about Christian heroes, you're meant to think how brilliant Jesus is. And everything of Jesus you see in the heroes, you follow. And isn't that great? Because the same Jesus who can graciously use those people we thought about earlier can also graciously use us. The real hero's him. Jesus uses weak, imperfect people, just like Daniel and Rahab, just like Elizabeth Elliot, just like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and just like you and me, to point to him. He's the hero.